Namaskar, good evening and welcome to Sansad TV. You're watching the news with your host Kriti Mishra. Get ready for your daily dose of national and international developments, minus noise and cacophony. First up, the headlines this Tuesday evening. Covivax approved for children above the age of 5 years. Prime Minister to interact with Chief Ministers on the COVID situation tomorrow. Kendriya Vidyalayas to provide free education to children who lost both parents to COVID pandemic. India criticizes European countries on the Ukraine conflict. Speaking at the Raisina Dialogue event, Foreign Minister references Afghanistan, says Western countries unaware of challenges facing Asia. 41% reduction in Naxalite violence in the country. Home Ministry's annual report for 2020-21 finds Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand most affected. CBSE board examinations begin. More than 21.16 lakh students for 10th standard and 14.54 lakh students for 12th appear for tests. Anti-government demonstrations intensify in other cities including Colombo. World Bank warns poverty will increase in Sri Lanka this year. And on to our flash news segment now. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman takes part in roundtable with industry leaders from semiconductor ecosystem in San Francisco. Agriculture Minister Narendra Singh Tomar inaugurates Kisan Bhagidari Prathmikta Hamari campaign. Asia's biggest international food fair and hospitality fair begins at Pragati Maidan in New Delhi. IGNOU should become the knowledge center of the world, says Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. Prashant Kishore declines to join Congress, says it needs leadership, collective will to fix problems. Markets rebound after two-day slump. BSE Sensex jumps 1.37%. Poshan Pakhwada 2022 witnesses 3 crore activities across the nation. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister announces new measures to bring transparency, accountability in functions of government. 6 people killed in Uttarakhand as vehicle falls into gorge in Pauri. Chief Minister expresses condolences. Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia says healthcare could become affordable with recruitment of more doctors and staff. Sri Narayan Guru is the spiritual torchbearer of India who made priceless contributions to the country's cultural heritage and value system. Prime Minister Modi said this at a virtual address to mark the 90th anniversary of Sivagiri pilgrimage and Golden Jubilee of Brahma Vidyalaya in Kerala on Tuesday. The Prime Minister said, when we walk on the path of reforming the society, then a power of self-improvement is also vacant in the society. He gave the example of social adoption of the campaign Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao in recent times, where situation improved with speed as the government was able to create the right environment.
और 10 साल बाद हम तीर्थ दानम के 100 सालों की यात्रा भी उसका भी उत्सव मनाएंगे। इन 100 सालों की यात्रा में हमारी उपलब्धियां वैश्विक होनी चाहिए और इसके लिए हमारा विजन भी वैश्विक होना चाहिए।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will interact with chief ministers on the current COVID-19 situation in the country on Wednesday through video conferencing. The meeting comes in the wake of some states reporting slight uptick in the number of daily COVID-19 cases. With several festivals coming up, Prime Minister Modi had on Sunday urged people to stay alert to the threat from the virus and continue to follow COVID-appropriate behavior like wearing masks and frequently washing hands. With 2,483 new COVID infections being reported in a day, India's cumulative tally of COVID-19 cases rose to 4.3 crore, while the active cases dipped to 15,636. The death toll climbed to 5.2 lakh, with 1,399 new fatalities as Assam reconciled 1,347 deaths and Kerala 47 due to this infection. And Drugs Controller General of India has given restricted emergency use authorization to Bharat Biotech's Covaxin for children. The approval has been given for the children between the age of 6 to 12 years. It has also granted emergency use authorization to Corbevax for those aged between 5 to 12 years. Union Health Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia said the DCGI has also granted emergency use authorization to Zykov for children above the age of 12 years for a 2-dose regime. And moving on now, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar says India has a very clear position on the conflict in Ukraine that asserts on an early end to fighting and a return to diplomacy and dialogue. Speaking at the Raisina Dialogue Town Hall, Dr. Jaishankar said Ukraine conflict is an issue of concern for everyone. Replying to a query, the minister said Asia faces its own challenges that often impact the rules-based order. He pointed out that the entire civil society in Afghanistan was thrown under the bus by the world less than a year ago. He stressed that it is all about finding the right balance of beliefs and interests. Priorities, he added, are different for different countries, and there are equal pressing issues in other parts of the world as well. The minister underlined that Afghanistan, Ukraine, big power rivalry and COVID have global consequences for everyone.
And it's a dominant issue, not just in terms of principles and values alone, also in terms of the practical consequences of it, the knock-on effects. And I understand that at this moment, this would probably occupy you to the exclusion of almost everything else. But there is also a world out there, and I'm very glad that you're sitting here in India, because it would remind you that there are equally pressing issues in other parts of the world. I mentioned Afghanistan.
And Union Minister Nitin Gadkari on Tuesday said if the US-based Tesla is ready to manufacture its electric vehicles in India, there is no problem. But the company must not import cars from China. In an interactive session at the Raisina Dialogue, Gadkari further said India is a large market and there is a huge potential for all electric vehicles. The Road Transport and Highways Minister said his request to Tesla is to come and manufacture in India. According to him, India has all the competence.
If the Elon Musk is ready to manufacture a Tesla in India, there is no problem. He is welcome in India. We don't have any problem. But suppose he want to manufacture in China and sell in India, it cannot be a good proposition for India.
Amid incidents of electric two-wheelers catching fire, Union Minister Nitin Gadkari urged companies to take advanced action to recall all defective vehicles, even as he said there is some problem with EV batteries when the temperature rises in the months of March, April and May.
We have already appointed an expert committee. There are scientists from DRDO also. We will get the reports. But apparently I feel that it is a problem of temperature, particularly high temperature, in the particularly sales. Now we have decided to make standardized rules and regulation for that.
And in other news now, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh held talks with UK Defence Procurement Minister Jeremy Quinn on Tuesday. The two leaders discussed opportunities available in areas related to aviation, shipbuilding and other defence industrial programs. The talks come just a couple of days after Prime Minister Modi and his British counterpart Boris Johnson agreed on a comprehensive India-UK defence partnership. The Home Ministry has sought a report from the Maharashtra government on Lok Sabha MP Navneet Rana's allegations of inhuman treatment by the police. The Privileges and Ethics Committee of Lok Sabha asked the Ministry of Home Affairs to seek the report from Maharashtra. Navneet Rana had said she would recite the Hanuman Chalisa in front of Thakere's residence Madhushri, after which she was arrested. Congress President Sonia Gandhi formed an Empowered Action Group 2024 after a presentation by strategist Prashant Kishore. Congress leader Randeep Surjewala tweeted that the party invited Prashant Kishore to join the Congress, but Prashant Kishore has denied it. The ED conducted searches at several locations in Mumbai, Pune and Surat in connection with a money laundering probe against ABG Shipyard Limited in an alleged 22,000 crore bank loan fraud case. The federal agency searched 26 premises. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal and his Punjab counterpart Bhagwant Mann signed a knowledge-sharing agreement to improve health, education infrastructure and strengthen facilities between the two states. Under this, 117 schools and mohalla clinics will be established in Punjab. India's Deputy Permanent Representative to the UN Security Council, R. Ravindra, expressed concern over the incidents at the holy site of Jerusalem during Ramzan. He said the historical status quo of Jerusalem's holy places should be respected and upheld. And Naxalite violence came down 41% and deaths by 54% in the country in 2020 as compared to 2013. The arc of the violence is restricted to just 30 districts, accounting 88% of all Moist violence. According to the annual report of the Ministry of Home Affairs for 2020-21, the Naxal violence was reported from 226 police stations in 53 districts spread across 9 states in 2020 as compared to 328 police stations in 76 districts spread over 10 states in 2013. We'll take a short break here. On the other side, a mid-air stunt goes wrong. Converting air into water sounds very, very interesting. How did the journey begin?
Honorable Prime Minister visited Israel in 2014-15 and he made a statement that India will also be fortunate if they have any atmospheric water generator which can convert the humidity in atmosphere, and that's exactly that inspiration made me to work faster. And 2016 we registered the company and 2018 we delivered the first machine.
This is actually a completely new category of water, completely scalable, and you're using a renewable source of water.
Let's hear the story of startup Netri Aquatech. Welcome back. You're watching the news. Now let's take a look at all the latest developments from the war front in Ukraine. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for a ceasefire in Ukraine on Tuesday at his meeting with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Guterres is visiting Moscow and is then scheduled to travel to the Ukrainian capital Kiev this week. Guterres said the world is extremely interested in creating conditions for an effective dialogue and a ceasefire. He also said he wanted to reduce the impact of fighting in Ukraine on food security in other parts of the world. Ukraine's foreign minister urged the UN chief to press Russia for an evacuation of the besieged port of Mariupol. He said this was a step that the world body's top diplomat is capable of delivering. He also expressed concerns that by visiting Moscow, the UN Secretary General could be falling into a Kremlin trap. He cited trips to the Russian capital by foreign officials ahead of the invasion as evidence of Kremlin dictating diplomacy. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov questioned the influence of Washington on Kiev's position in prospective talks. Lavrov, however, said Moscow will continue speaking with the Ukrainian negotiation team, but reprimanded them for what he perceived as unprofessionalism, including Ukrainian President Zelensky's supposed disinterest in the progress of the talks. Meanwhile, Russia pounded eastern Ukraine on Tuesday, even as U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin promised to keep moving heaven and earth to get Kiev the weapons it needs to repel the new offensive. Moscow warned that such support risks widening the war. U.S. Defense Secretary said help was on the way as he convened a meeting of officials from around 40 countries at the United States Air Base in Germany to pledge more weapons. Germany announced it cleared the way for delivery of anti-aircraft guns to Ukraine. And the UN Refugee Agency is launching a new appeal for funds for the crisis sparked by the Ukraine conflict. It has projected that up to 8.3 million people will have to flee the country by year-end. The projection was announced on Tuesday as part of a new $1.85 billion response plan from UNHRC aimed at supporting refugees from Ukraine after Russia's war began on 24th of February. It far outstrips the agency's previous refugee estimates, which now stand at just over 5.2 million. The exodus has exceeded the worst-case predictions of the Geneva-based agency, which it has called the largest refugee crisis in Europe since World War II. Now news from the other parts of the world. In one of the world's biggest deals in the tech world, billionaire Elon Musk has taken control of Twitter. The deal will see Musk acquire the social network for approximately $44 billion, with shares valued at $54.2. Musk had announced his takeover bid on April 14th, calling it his best and final offer. Take a look at this report.
Billionaire Elon Musk has reached an agreement to acquire Twitter for $44 billion as per the company. The Tesla CEO, the world's wealthiest person, has said he wants to buy Twitter because he thinks it's not living up to its potential as a platform for free speech.
Musk owning Twitter continues to be a bit of a head scratcher, I think, to many, especially trading in his Tesla stock, about 10% of it for Twitter. It starts off with freedom of speech. I think that's really been the starter for going after Twitter. But ultimately, it's really trying to shake up social media. I mean, he feels like it's a fragmented platform. He could significantly improve it. But there's growth challenges ahead. Twitter's been an underperforming platform for the last decade. And this is definitely Musk betting 20% of his net worth on Twitter. Definitely a risky move.
He says it needs to be transformed as a private company in order to build trust with users and do better at serving what he calls the societal imperative of free speech. Twitter said it will become a privately held company after the sale is closed. Musk describes himself as a free speech absolutist, although he hasn't been exactly clear what he means by that. He acknowledged that Twitter would have to abide by national laws governing speech in markets around the world. Musk himself, though, regularly blocks social media users who have criticized him or his company. Twitter's board at first enacted an anti-takeover measure known as a poison pill that could have made a takeover attempt prohibitively expensive. But when Musk outlined the financial commitments he had lined up to back his offer of $46.5 billion and no other bidders emerged, the board opened negotiations with him. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
And protesters in Sri Lanka have intensified calls for the removal of the Rajapaksa government from power. Demonstrations have been roiling Sri Lanka since 9th April as the government ran out of money to pay for imports. The Colombo Magistrates Court refused to issue a police order restraining the protests. There is also pressure on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa to form an interim government. He said he will hand over the reins of the government to a group capable of garnering the support of 113 MPs in the 225-member parliament, but will not step down from the presidency. The World Bank has warned the poverty will increase in Sri Lanka this year. The global body also appealed to Sri Lanka to cut debt, reduce fiscal deficit and provide relief to the poor and vulnerable. The crisis is partly due to the lack of foreign exchange, which is making it difficult to pay for the import of food and fuel. The Sri Lankan economy contracted 3.6% in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And global cooking oil prices have been rising since the COVID-19 pandemic began for multiple reasons, from poor harvests in South America to virus-related labor shortages and steadily increasing demand from the biofuel industry. But the conflict in Ukraine that supplies nearly half of the world's sunflower oil on top of the 25% from Russia is proving to be the last nail in the coffin. For months, this Istanbul restaurant was absorbing the surging cost of sunflower oil. But in April this year, with oil prices nearly 4 times higher than they were in 2019, it finally raised its prices. Now even long-time customers look at the menu and walk away. It is the latest fallout to the global food supply from the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Food supply is particularly at risk. The conflict has disrupted grain shipments from Ukraine and Russia and worsened a global fertilizer crunch. Vegetable oil prices hit a record high in February before rising 23% more in March. Palm oil prices were up 200% and are set to go even higher after Indonesia, one of the world's top producers, banned exports last week to protect domestic supplies. Supermarket chains in Turkey have imposed limits on the amount of vegetable oil households can purchase. German shoppers are posting photos on social media of empty shelves where sunflower and canola oil usually sit. Spain, Italy and the United Kingdom are rationing. Aggravating matters is the overall uncertainty. Farmers may not plant enough crops to make up for shortfalls from Ukraine or Russia because they don't know when the war might end. In the meantime, for struggling consumers and businesses, there seems to be no easy solution. Bureau Report, Sansad TV. And in more global news now, at least 4 people, including 3 Chinese nationals and their Pakistani driver, were killed and several others injured on Tuesday when a car exploded on the premises of University of Karachi. North Korea says leader Kim Jong-un has vowed to bolster his country's nuclear capability at the maximum speed. A court in military-ruled Myanmar on Tuesday postponed delivering a verdict on the first of almost a dozen corruption cases filed against country's former leader Aung San Suu Kyi. The court did not give any reason for delaying the expected verdict until Wednesday. Her trial has been closed to the public and her lawyers barred from speaking to the press. China's capital Beijing is enforcing mass testing and closing down access to neighborhoods as it seeks to contain a new COVID-19 outbreak. Announcement of the testing sparked panic buying in the city of 21 million on Monday. Fears of total lockdown were heightened by situation faced by Shanghai, that 25 million residents are only allowed leaving homes after 3 weeks of confinement. Shanghai residents have been banding to get food delivered through group buying. A Japanese woman recognized as the world's oldest person, Kane Tanaka, has died at the age 119, just months short of her goal of reaching 120. Born on January 2nd, 1903, Tanaka loved playing the board game and had a soft corner for chocolate and fizzy drinks. She was certified by Guinness World Records as the oldest living person in 2019 when she was 116. In media interactions, she said she was still enjoying life and hoped to live until 120. Tanaka died of old age on 19th of April. And 2 skydivers failed to successfully swap planes mid-flight on Sunday. Had they succeeded, it would have made aviation history.
And rotating.
A daring stunt high up in the air. It had pilots Luke Ekins and Andy Farrington perform a synchronized nosedive at 14,000 feet before turning their engines off and then leaving their respective aircraft. The final part, that involved the men skydiving into each other's planes, proved to be the trickiest part. Ekins managed to get into Farrington's aircraft and landed safely, but Farrington ran into difficulties and he had to abandon the attempt. It could have been a massive disaster, but there was a silver lining to the entire exercise. Both daredevils are safe to try another day. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
Now all the action from the world of sports. In 39th match of IPL being played at Pune's Maharashtra Cricket Association Stadium, Royal Challengers Bangalore are taking on Rajasthan Royals. Though both the teams have 10 points each, RR are placed third to RCB's fifth with a better net run and having played 1 match less. The 38th match of IPL went the Punjab Kings way on Monday at Mumbai's Wankhede Stadium. Punjab Kings defeated Chennai Super Kings. Punjab put on 187 for the loss of 4 wickets, held mainly by 88 not out of 59 balls by opener Shikhar Dhawan. Chennai Super Kings were always chasing the game and finally fell short by 11 runs. Former Indian women's hockey team captain Elvira Brito died today due to old age-related problems. She was 81. Elvira, the eldest of the 3 famous Brito sisters, ruled the domestic circuit from 1960 to 1967, guiding Karnataka to 7 national titles. She represented India against Australia, Sri Lanka and Japan. In 1965, Elvira became the only second women hockey player to be conferred with the Arjuna Award. In football now, 13 times European champions Real Madrid would face Manchester City in the first leg of Champions League semi-finals tonight. Real have question marks over the fitness of few players for tonight's game, but would be drawing inspiration from informed striker Karim Benzema. On the other hand, City remain in search of their first Champions League title after losing the final to Chelsea last year. And Haryana Chief Minister Manohar Lal informed today that Khelo India Youth Games 2021, which have been postponed multiple times due to the COVID-19 pandemic, will be organized in the state from June 4th to June 13th. The games will be held in Ambala, Chandigarh and Delhi apart from Panchkula. Around 8,500 players will participate in these games. The Chief Minister shared detailed information regarding the event with the Union Sports Minister Anurag Thakur through video conference during the meeting of Organising and Coordination Committee of Khelo India Youth Games 2021. And before we sign off, a relook at the headlines now. Covivax approved for children above the age of 5 years. Prime Minister Modi to interact with Chief Ministers on the COVID situation tomorrow. Kendriya Vidyalayas to provide free education to children who lost both parents to COVID-19 pandemic. India criticizes European countries on the Ukraine conflict. Speaking at the Raisina Dialogue event, Foreign Minister references Afghanistan, says Western countries unaware of challenges facing Asia. 41% reduction in Naxalite violence in the country. Home Ministry's annual report for 2020-21 finds Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand most affected. CBSE board examinations begin. More than 21.16 lakh students for 10th standard and 14.54 lakh students for 12th appear for tests. Anti-government demonstrations intensify in other cities including Colombo. World Bank warns poverty will increase in Sri Lanka this year. And that's all we had for you in this edition. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Sansad TV. Namaskar.